Yes, welcome everybody. I'm so glad to see you all again. I was just scrolling through to say hi to faces and names that I've recognized from previous presentations, and I'm so glad that you're here today. Um, I wanted to share today. We are going to be talking within our Healthy Habits, Healthy Families series about the food waste recycling. Many of us have received from Sacramento County a flyer in our post off in our mailbox about recycling and food scrap recycling, and we're all wondering what that means. Some of your students may have come home and let you know, Mom or Dad, guess what? I have to scrape my food into this one garbage can and throw away my trash in a different one and put my recyclables in a different one. And so it kind of leaves us all wondering what that means and what's coming and how that's going to work in our busy lives. And then we're hoping today to also share like how that can empower us to change some habits within our own home and how it opens our eyes. So this new way of thinking about, wow, there's a strong need to go ahead and think about where our food scraps are going and how we dispose of them or how we can reuse them, and what are some really innovative ways that we can reduce waste and make a difference in our community and in the environment. So we're excited to share with you what we have today. And we'll also be talking about our pop-up event that's coming on Saturday that we are so excited for. We have an author that is going to read her very own children's story about a community garden. We have seating stations and a walk in the garden. So we're really excited for you to join us at Orchard Elementary this Saturday from 10 to 12. Put it in your phones right now and plan to be there with your kids. It really should be a fun time and a chance for us all to meet each other, get back in person, and find some new ways to engage on the campuses within Twin River. So without any further ado, I'm going to just do a couple of little reminders about keeping your microphone on mute. If you can come on when we have question time at the end of the presentation, if you could come on to video so that we can see you. And please feel free to ask your questions. I know we've got our Breathe California is going to be here to do a presentation, and so we might have questions for them about what all this recycling and food scrap recycling means. So we're going to go ahead and get started with that. We'll go to the next slide. Just a quick reminder, because I am my name is Lisa Morris. I'm the dietitian from Nutrition Services here at Twin River. So I'm always have to plug school meals and share the fact that we have a great website, we have Facebook, and we always encourage you to check out menus, check out what's happening, and engage with your school cafeteria, because we're doing some nutrition education and some great things for families and for your students. Okay. And we've got all kinds of things cooking right now. After we're done with our Zoom, we're going to be going to a farmer's market, which we'll be having at Woodlake Elementary for their open house. We also have your pop-up event coming to May 14th, which will also have a farmer's market. We've been to almost 20 elementary schools doing farmers markets, and Harvest of the Month is coming in May. This will be doing asparagus. So your kids, many of your students will be tasting asparagus. Later that month, we'll be doing strawberries. So there's a lot of fresh fruit and vegetable opportunities for your students and a lot of nutrition education that we're excited about. And with that, I'd like to introduce Breathe California. After Breathe California talks, then we're going to be hearing from Joanna from Health Education Council, talking a little bit more about ways that we can reduce waste just by some of the practices that we do within our own kitchen. And then we'll have some time for questions and answers after that.
Perfect. All right. So welcome and thank you for taking time to be here today to learn about food waste recycling. My name is Katie and I'm here with my colleague, Julia. She wants wave hand. Yeah. We both work for Breathe California, Sacramento region, and we go to schools across Sacramento to teach students about how to sort smart and recycle right. And so today we're switching it up a little bit to talk about how to sort smart and recycle right at home. Before I dive in, I just want to take a moment to share a little bit about our organization. So Breathe California Sacramento region is a local nonprofit focused on improving lung health through clean air and tobacco prevention and education programs. One of the ways that we focus on air quality here in Sacramento is through our school food scraps recycling program, where we help bring schools into compliance with mandatory organic recycling laws and help to reduce our food waste in landfills. Since 2016, we have worked with over 20 schools to bring them into compliance and set up recycling infrastructure and to train students and staff on how to sort their waste at school. And this program is funded through the Sacramento County and the City of Sacramento. And so we wouldn't be able to do this type of work without their support. So in our presentation, we're going to share with you the importance of recycling in our food scraps. Also the state mandate, SB 1383, that's helping to facilitate the implementation of food waste recycling across the state. And then we'll share with you the waste sorting process and what that can look like at home. And then we'll end it with some food waste reduction tips. All right, so food waste is the single largest item in our waste stream, totaling about 108 billion pounds of food every single year. So to help put this in perspective, that means that we waste about 30 to 40% of all our food that is produced in the US each year. So if this pizza represented our entire US food supply, that means we would waste about a third of this pizza. If we were to also fill the Golden One arena with all our food waste, we would be able to fill 5 arenas each day for a single year. And on top of that, if we were to grow all of this food waste on one plot of land, that land would cover about 3/4 the size of California. And so this is an alarming amount of food waste that we are throwing away each year. And it also takes a ton of resources to produce our food, such as water, labor, oil, and land. And this doesn't include the energy that it would take to to keep our produce cold and to transport it across the country. And so when we do throw away food that's left over on our plates, such as a strawberry, we're not just throwing that strawberry away, but we're also throwing away all the resources that went into getting that strawberry on our plates. So we may not think so much about the food and trash once we're done with it, but when we throw it away into the trash can, most of that food waste will end up here at the landfill. In fact, in 2018, the EPA estimated that about 81% of households' wasted food ended up either here or in a combustion facility. And landfills are designed to be very compact and airtight, meaning that there's not a lot of oxygen inside them to help break down our materials. So just like how you and I need oxygen to breathe and live, oxygen is also an important ingredient to break down our materials. And so in the absence of oxygen, it can take decades and centuries to help to make our waste essentially disappear. And so for an example, a head of lettuce can take about 25 years to rot or decompose inside a landfill. And another fact I recently learned is that plastic straws can take up to 200 years. And so if you think about it, these landfills are sort of like time capsules that are keeping our waste underground. And this also means that we have to put more resources into these landfills to help maintain them and make sure that they're safe and secure for long periods of time. On top of that, one of the most pressing environmental issues regarding landfills is their release of methane gas. When our food waste decomposes in landfills, it releases methane, which is a greenhouse gas that's known to be 84 times stronger at absorbing the sun's heat than carbon dioxide. And it makes it one of the most potent greenhouse gases and a major contributor to climate change. Along with methane, Landfills also produce carbon dioxide, water vapor, and nitrogen, which are also known to produce smog when they interact with sunlight. And this also impacts our air quality, especially for communities that are living next to or nearby these landfills. Air pollution can impact lung development, especially for children. It can contribute to asthma, emphysema, and other respiratory illnesses. And so being able to reduce our waste in landfills means that we can help mitigate climate change, but also help to improve our health and the quality of life as well. So to help address the problem of food waste, in 2016, the Senate passed SB 1383 to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, such as methane, and to combat climate change. This bill establishes statewide targets to reduce organic waste disposal in landfills by 75% by 2025. And this law will nearly affect every Californian here, essentially requiring businesses, public entities, and residential properties to all sort their waste into 3 different streams. And that includes landfill, recycling, and then food scraps and food soiled paper. So as you may already be aware, this new law took effect earlier this year in January, requiring multi-unit housing of 5 or more units to have to sort their organic waste. And following that, on July 1st, single family properties and multi-family properties of 4 or less units will be required to divert their organic waste. So when this program rolls out, if you have a green yard waste bin right now that you're putting your yard waste into, you essentially will be putting your food scraps and food soiled paper into that bin as well. So you don't have to worry about there being a 4th cart or bin. You're going to keep the same amount of carts you have right now, but you'll just be using your green waste bin that you're using for yard waste right now to put in your other organic waste. Just another tidbit about this, the county, if you are in unincorporated areas of the county, they are considering phasing this program in. So if you are in a single family property or multi-unit family property that hasn't started this program yet, starting July 1st, they are going to phase in different neighborhoods slowly across 2022. And Julie is going to share a little bit more about what this program will look like. But first, I just want to share with you where our food scraps and food soiled paper are going. So when we throw everything, all our organic waste into the green waste cart, it will be picked up and sent to a large-scale compost facility, like you can see on the left here. These facilities are located across the state, and the closest one is next door to us in Yolo County. And we are sending our organic waste here to have it composted. If you're not familiar with compost, it's the product that you get when organic material like food scraps, leaves, and food soiled paper decompose properly. As you can see on the right, compost is a dirt-like material that is full of nutrients that we can put back into the soil to feed it the nutrients it needs to stay healthy and nourished. A way we like to describe it to students is just like how you and I need food to get our energy and nutrients throughout the day, and to keep doing what we're doing, our soil also needs food too. And so compost has all the nutrients that our soil needs to stay healthy and to keep growing more food and produce for us to continue to be. And so now I'm going to pass it off to Julia to share a little bit more about what this program looks like at our homes.
Okay, so we're going to go over a little bit of what the new sorting process will look like, as it will be new to a lot of you. And we're going to talk about what waste items go into which containers. And these are examples of what your containers might look like, but they also could be different. So for example, if you live in an apartment complex, you may have something that looks closer to an outdoor dumpster instead of having these smaller carts. But in general, you'll have the carts for landfill, recycling, and food scraps and food soiled paper. So these are examples of items that you're probably familiar with throwing into the trash because they cannot be recycled into something new. So some examples of things that might go into your landfill trash are plastic utensils and straws, any flimsy plastics like plastic wrap and Ziploc bags. These are flimsy plastics or any plastics that are easily tearable with your hands. And these cannot be recycled, so they have to go into the landfill. And then other examples include milk cartons and juice boxes. These often have a wax coating on them, which means that they also cannot be recycled, so they go into the landfill. And then any food wrappers or plastic packaging that goes on your food, and then styrofoam. Those are the main examples of things that will go into your landfill. And then another thing to look out for is any recyclable items that are too dirty to be recycled. And I'll go over a little bit more about what that means. So for your mixed recyclables, these will all go into likely a blue can, and these items must be clean and dry in order to be recycled. So this includes clean items like paper and cardboard, like boxes, newspaper, magazines, and egg cartons. And then clean aluminum and metal beverages and cans like soup cans, soda, any dog and food cans. And this also includes the labels and the lids can be recycled as well. And then any firm plastics. So these are plastics that cannot be easily torn with your hands. For example, plastic water bottles, any firm plastic containers like the yogurt container, as long as they're clean and dry, they can be recycled. And then finally, the last example we have is clean glass bottles and jars. And this can be any colored glass bottle. So all of those can be recycled and go into your blue can. And then finally, we have the food scraps and food soiled paper products. And these are all items that can be composted, as Katie was describing. So some examples include any leftover cooked meals, including spoiled items like the rotten cheese there, any fruits and vegetables, including the non-edible parts like the apple core, peels, seeds, anything that grows in or outside of the fruit can be composted. And then meat, bones, and eggshells, any coffee grounds and tea bags, and then even food soiled paper products can be composted. So this includes like dirty napkins or dirty cardboard like a greasy pizza box. And you want to remember that before throwing away your food waste, that you should remove any wrappers and packaging from your food so that you can dispose of those into the landfill can, because no plastic should be going into the green food scraps can because it cannot be composted. So when this program rolls out at home, you'll continue to throw all of the same materials away, just into a different cart. So these are just some tips to help ensure that your food scraps are sorted properly, as this is likely a new process for many of you. So before throwing your organics into your organics cart, be sure to remove any stickers, twist ties, rubber bands, anything that's not natural to your produce you don't want to put into your organics bin. And this will help reduce contamination in the bin so that it can be properly composted. And then also to help you sort your organics, you can use a small container in the kitchen to have handy when you're cooking and preparing your food. And this container can even be a paper bag, or it can be a pail like on the slide. And we also recommend to line, if you're using a pail, to line the pail with newspaper or some sort of compostable liner, because that will help reduce the smell and also avoid spills and messes inside of the pail. And then you'll also want to keep this small container in a place near where you cook and prepare your food. So storing it under the sink or on the kitchen counter are good places. And during the summer, when the weather is a little bit warmer, you can also put your food scraps in a bag in the freezer. And this is especially helpful for when you're recycling things like meat and fish to help reduce odors. And then at the end of each day, you'll want to place your food scraps into your organics cart to reduce the odors in your home. And if you're using a compostable or paper bag, you can also put that bag into the cart as well, and then just bring your container back into your home to reuse again the next day. So the most important thing that we can do to stop food waste or to reduce food waste is just to stop preventing it in the first place. And this might sound simple, but households are responsible for the largest portion of all food waste. And in the US, an average person typically wastes about 238 pounds of food per year, which equates to about 21% of the food that they buy. And so major contributors to this household food waste include food spoilage, over preparing meals, date label confusion, like the expiration dates, overbuying your food, and then poor planning. So today we just wanted to share a couple of tips that can help reduce the amount of food that you waste in your home. So the first one that we're going to talk about is meal planning. So before you go to the store, we recommend shopping in your fridge or freezer and pantry. So look in those places first to avoid buying food that you already have. And then make a list each week of what needs to be used up and plan your upcoming meals around that. And then also buying in large quantities, such as the buy one, get one free deals, only save you money if you're actually going to use all of the food before it spoils. So try to only buy the food that you know you will be able to eat. And then once you're at the store, try to avoid impulse buys. I know this can be difficult, but it really helps reduce the amount of food you waste and also can help you save money. And then another great way to reduce food waste is to save your leftovers and reinvent them into something new. So these are just a couple of examples. There's plenty out there, but you can freeze your leftover fruit for a smoothie later. You could save any veggie scraps you have for a soup. And then you can also save stale bread and use it to make croutons, which is a really great way to use bread that you might be throwing away otherwise. And then also just remember to always clearly label your leftovers in the fridge and freezer with what it is and also the date, just to avoid any confusion. Okay, so the next tip we have is to make sure to read the labels on your food. So there's actually a huge difference between the best by and use by dates, but many of us treat them all as expiration dates, which means that we're oftentimes throwing good food away. And so best by dates are not purchase or safety dates. So food can oftentimes be eaten long after that date as long as it's stored properly, while use by dates are determined by the manufacturer and are generally the last date that is recommended for use at the product's peak quality. So if we understand what each of these dates mean, then we will know when the food is still okay to eat, especially if we store it correctly. And then these are a couple of tips on how to store your food smart. So try not to overcrowd your fridge. That reduces circulation and efficiency in keeping your food fresh. Also, the doors of your fridge are the warmest part. So you can store condiments there, but we'd recommend not storing dairy or eggs or anything that's more perishable. And then the crisper drawers are a great place to keep your produce. Most crisper drawers have levers on them, so you can turn them from high humidity to low humidity. And I believe that Joanna from the Health Education Council is going to cover this a little bit more. And I think they're also going to cover this a bit, but just a reminder that when you go shopping, find out what fruits and vegetables are in season before buying. And I have just a couple examples on the screen here of produce items that are in season now. And buying in-season produce will just ensure that your produce lasts a little bit longer, and oftentimes it tastes better as well. And then finally, obviously, as we've discussed before, one of the best ways to reduce your waste is to recycle your food scraps at home and in your workplace. And some of your students may already be practicing this in their schools, but starting this summer, all Sacramento residents will start recycling their food scraps. So that's just a reminder. And I think that's all of the tips that we have today.
Yes, that is. Yeah. And so just to kind of recap what Lisa said about the Orchard Elementary event. We'll be there if you have any questions. If we don't get them today, we're happy to answer them. We have some giveaways to students as well. The city and county also have excellent resources to making sure that you can successfully reduce and recycle your food scraps at home. And so I recommend visiting the website of the jurisdiction you're under. I've included 2 QR codes that you can scan with your phone. I'll also have these at our booth at Orchard Elementary as well. And yeah, thank you for taking the time to listen, and we'll pass it off to the next speaker.
Thank you so much, Katie and Julie. I appreciate it. And I'm kind of excited because I was curious about what I was going to do with my coffee grounds. It's like, oh, am I going to have to shake all the coffee out of the grounds? So I'm kind of glad I'll be able to put the filter and the coffee grounds out of my coffee pot into the green waste. And then, I'm excited to see if, as families are able to come on Saturday and join us, they'll probably have been thinking about questions, because you think about like the pizza box, and there's kind of that oil and grease at the bottom of that, like can that go in? And sometimes it can actually be confusing, and it's exciting to all be in this together so that we can all figure it out together as well. So next, Joanna from Health Education Council is going to be presenting some more information about how we can reduce waste. Thinking outside the box. So yes, we're going to recycle our food scraps from our plate, or as we're preparing our fruits and vegetables, and make sure those go in a certain bin. But there's a lot we can continue to do to make sure that we're getting our money's worth and getting all those, fruits and vegetables actually into our body, and making sure that we're taking advantage of all the opportunities for nutrition, actually eating the foods and consuming the foods that that we have in our home, and that is available to us. So we're saving money and time as well. So thank you, Joanna. Welcome.
All right, thank you, Lisa, and thank you, Katie and Julia. That's all really great information. So my information will also be, it works well with everything that you guys discussed. So like Lisa said, my name is Joanna Ramirez, I'm with the Health Education Council. So happy to be here again with you guys. And like Lisa said, we'll be talking a little bit more about food prevention. And to start, we'll be starting with your fridge and how to organize your fridge like a pro. So going a little bit more in depth on what Breathe talked about. So we know that, most fridges, refrigerators have all these different shelves: the top shelf, your middle shelf, bottom shelf, the crisper drawer, and the door. So we're going to be going through the different food items and where they should go in your fridge. And then these are just some food examples. So to start, we'll start with your top shelf. And for that example, we had the half-cut watermelon. And for your top shelf, you want to place your ready-to-eat foods and beverages. And you can also place your herbs up there on the upper shelves. And then for your middle shelf, this is where you want to place those ingredients that anything pretty much besides raw meat and eggs would go in your middle shelf. And in this image, you can see that it has a lot of containers. So probably your yogurt containers, and then any leftover containers, that would be a really great spot for them. And then next would be your bottom shelf. And in that one is where you want to place your raw eggs, your meat and fish. And this is all to avoid that cross-contamination, because you don't want to put it on that top shelf or even that middle shelf, because anything, if it's in those packages and it starts leaking through, everything else, it's just going to drip down and contaminate all of your other food items in your fridge, and it's just a big mess. So always on your bottom shelf. And then for your the crisper drawer, you want to use your drawers like Julia mentioned, for your produce, and you want to keep them clean of debris that could cause that contamination or spoilage. And right here, they're all contained in a drawer, so it's a good, a safe spot for them. And then last would be the door. And this is the warmest part of the refrigerator. So it's the best place for the condiments, any water, juices, other beverages, and your least perishable items. So this is, you definitely don't want to put like your eggs or your butter in here. And I know some refrigerators do have that little shelf that is like the perfect place to put butter or your eggs. But you want to remember that, this is the warmest spot in your refrigerator because you're opening it the most, and that's not where you want to place those perishable items. So next we're gonna talk about like those different food items in your fridge and on your counter and in other places in your kitchen. So where do those other items go? And we're gonna go through some of the 10, like the top 10 items that you would buy the most. So these are just some examples. So for example, in your fridge, it would be like cheese or, any animal products. I mean, I think this one's pretty common, anything that needs to be refrigerated, needs to be kept cold is where you would put it into the refrigerator. You could also put some fruits and vegetables, apples is a great place to put them for long-term storage. And then some for vegetables, carrots, this is a really great place for them, as well as non-starchy vegetables like your broccoli, your peas, and your cucumbers. And pretty much any fruit or vegetable that's been cut or bruised, you want to place in the refrigerator. And your greens, asparagus, and any fresh herbs as well. And for your mushrooms, if you guys like mushrooms, you want to store those in paper and not plastic, because those are pretty delicate and they tend to rot because of the refrigeration. So next would be items that go on your countertop or your cabinet. So these are items that are kept airtight. So this would be, for example, your vegetable oils, your unopened shelf-stable jars, any cans or bottles, and any dry beans, grains, and cereal, as well as bread and baked goods. And then next would be your countertop or cabinet, but items that are not airtight. So this would be, you could store some fruits and vegetables on your counter, like garlic and onions, some hard squash and bananas, your citrus items, as well as tomatoes and avocados. And then other items that would be best kept like in shelves or like in a pantry would be like your potatoes and yams. You want to store those in a cool and dark place, especially away from your onions. I know a lot of people kind of like to put them all together. That's just sometimes how it happens, but actually the onions, the gases that the onions release actually cause your potatoes and your yams to, they start to rot a lot faster. So you want to keep those in a dark place, and a good place to be also would be like in a paper bag, like inside your pantry. Okay, and then we're gonna go through, I know Bree also talked a little bit about decoding your code dates, and they did mention a bit more about, what these terms mean, the best if used by, the sell by, and the expiration date. So I'm just gonna skip that one, and then I'll go through the code date extension. So this is more about different food items and their storage life. So when is it safe to use these food items beyond the printed dates? So if an item is generally considered safe to store and use beyond the printed best before date, that duration is listed in the table below. And you want to remember to not consume any food that has, a bad odor, or if it has mold on it, or any foreign objects, or like a change in color. So this is just some examples of like baby food. And then we have butter, some sliced bread, spices, and poultry. So this just shows you, you know, depending on where they're stored, how long their shelf life is. So spices definitely tend to last a really long time, you know, years wise. Bread is only, you know, a couple days because we know it gets stale, and then, you know, it can get moldy as well as your chicken, only a couple days in the fridge. So those you want to really remember to make as soon as you can, or freeze them, because they do last, you know, about 12 months. And let me go to the next one. So then these other items are canned beans. Pretty much any canned items, they have a really long shelf life. And then for your eggs, in your refrigerator about 4 to 5 weeks. Your milk, if it is shelf stable, about 6 months. If it's not, which would be like your gallon, in your refrigerator, just a week. And if you freeze it, about 1 to 3 months. And another item that also lasts a long time is your peanut butter. But for all of these, you know, you always want to make sure you read the labels, especially some items that we tend to forget. Like peanut butter, we might think it lasts forever, but you want to make sure you look at it, the dates. So here's an activity about, you know, which items, pretty much myth or fact if any of these statements, if it's true or not, if the food is safe. So starting with microorganisms, so like bacteria and yeast, are they always harmful? And this is a myth. Although many microorganisms can make us sick, some help us by aiding that digestion or killing off other harmful microorganisms. And then next is, once raw vegetables start to wilt or soften, they are inedible. And this is also a myth. Limp or droopy vegetables can often be fixed by soaking them in ice water for 10 minutes. And these food items only need to be thrown away if they are, you know, smelly or slimy or very discolored. And then next, number 3 is, if a potato has green spots or sprouts, it should be thrown out. And that is a fact. If a potato has green spots or sprouts, it can contain toxins. And the same is true of bitter potatoes. And these are, instead of throwing these out, you can actually put these into the composting bin. And then number 4 is, any food with mold or rot on it must be thrown out. This one's actually a myth. So some fruits and vegetables, they can be saved by cutting the bad parts off. So you don't entirely have to throw everything away, even though, you know, it might gross you out. And if it does, you know, instead of throwing it away, you can put it into your composting. And you want to be sure to cut, you know, about 1 inch or more around that moldy area. And then if it's a food item that needs to be cooked, you want to cook it before you eat it. And then number 5, any food that has a new bad smell should be thrown out. And this is a fact. You know, raw, fresh fruits and vegetables, they sometimes have, or you may not know about your leftovers, like why they all of a sudden smell bad. And, you know, the first sign is the smell. And that's how you know that it doesn't work anymore and you should throw it away. Number 6 is, any food that has bugs on it should be thrown out. And this is also a myth. So your raw, fresh fruits and vegetables, they do grow bugs on them sometimes, especially if they are grown organically. And if the item is otherwise fresh looking, you may want to simply, you know, rinse it off. But you do want to discard any foods that are, you know, that have a lot of bugs, or if they have worms, or if they have the holes and like slimy spots. And number 7, eating straight from a storage container makes food inside go bad faster. And this is a fact. So it is dangerous. So when you do drink juice from like say if you're drinking juice from the carton, you're introducing bacteria that may make it spoil faster. So you always want to use clean utensils to take that food from the storage containers and pour it into a different container. And then the last one, if it's dangerous to reheat leftovers more than once. and this is a fact. As a general rule, reheating leftovers multiple times increases the risk of a bad bacteria, and it also reduces the nutritional value. So instead of reheating like a whole pot of soup, just take out as much as you're going to need from that pot and reheat that in a separate dish. Okay, now we're going to go through some tips on how to stretch your produce and to get the most out of your produce, and just think about items. These are some questions for you to think about. What do you already use of these strategies and tips and things that you would want to try from the things that we discussed today. So for all produce in general, you can extend that shelf life by giving those food items a vinegar bath. And I know a lot of people actually already do this. So it's very common, a very common practice. After you go to get food at the grocery store, they come home and they give all of their produce a vinegar bath before putting it into the refrigerator. And this is a really great method. And that's a really good tip as well to wash everything, as soon as you get home. That way you don't forget later on to wash it. And then for your herbs, you want to keep the tender parts. So you can actually store your herbs in a glass with a little bit of water at the bottom. So kind of like flowers, and you can put these into your refrigerator. And this tip also works for asparagus. And I know a common herb is like cilantro, and it really helps it stay fresh longer. And then for your root vegetables, you want to remember to scrub them, not peel them. And the skins of your potatoes, yams, carrots, and many other root vegetables, they're high in minerals and fiber. So you definitely don't want to peel them ahead of time. You just want to really scrub them down beforehand. Okay, and then your other vegetables, again, remember don't throw everything away. You can save a lot of the ends, for example, for broccoli, and then for celery as well. For your bell peppers, a lot of these you can just save them and make, vegetable stock. Or you could, instead of throwing them away, use them, like put them in your composting. And broccoli stems are really great. A lot of people think that, you just only eat the top part, which is the florets, but the stems have a lot of nutrition as well, and they have a lot of fiber, and there's just a lot of different ways for you to reuse them, just eating them raw or steaming them, as well as incorporating them into your vegetable stock. And for your fruits, you can actually freeze them. So any edible parts that you can't use today can be frozen, and maybe you can make them into smoothies or sauces later. And these are a really easy tip. Frozen fruits are really good. You can eat them as a snack, or you could later, blend them into a smoothie. So here we have some food preservation techniques. And I know we did talk about some of these words might be familiar from our previous workshops, like fermenting and pickling. So this might just be a review for some of you. And this might, I'm probably going to skip this. Oh, okay. So I think that's it. And we do have a poll for you guys to take, as an overview from all of this, everything that we talked about today. And this will actually leave us more time for you guys to do the poll and to ask us any questions. And then for us to let you guys know some more information on that Saturday event. And I can hand it off to you, Lisa.
All right, wonderful. So Joanna, are you going to launch that poll after we take questions?
Yeah, I can launch it.
Okay. Okay, well, does anyone have any questions for Katie or Joanna about the specifics about food waste recycling, or any other questions you may have? You're welcome to take yourself off of mute. You just click that on most computer screens, it's on the bottom left. You would unclick the mute button and then you can just speak up. If not, you can chat your questions and I'll be monitoring the chat as well. I'll give you a second to think of any ideas. Well, I'd like to ask you some questions then. What kinds of things are you thinking you're going to use? How are you going to save your food scraps? Do you think you'll have a tub in your sink or have a different garbage can? Or what's some of the strategies you think you'll be wanting to use as this comes online in July? Let's see if I can see.
I have something to add to that actually quickly. If anyone is living in unincorporated Sacramento County, the county will have, I believe it's about 14,000 of those pails available. It will be first come, first serve. And I don't know how they're going to announce that, but sometime either in June or July, they'll have more information on their website. So that's for unincorporated Sacramento County too.
Oh, thank you. I do think it'd be very useful to have. I've been thinking about that. Well, where are we going to put the food scraps and where's that going to fit on my counter? And how often are we going to go take those food scraps outside and take them to the garbage? And, you know, is it going to be covered? Is it going to make the flies come on my, I've spent a long time thinking about stuff like this. So I think it's important for all of us to come up with a plan, be aware that these things are coming and we're going to be incorporating this into our new world. So, and Monica Martinez said small pail on counter. I love it. And we did have one question for you, Katie, and it was, if you can check the chat for me real quick, it was about the cooking oil. How are we going to recycle that?
Yes, so I need to double check if you can just put it all into the organics bin. I'm not positive, but from other resources I've read in the past, they suggest wiping it up with a napkin that is considered food soluble paper, and then it can go into the food scraps bin. So if you mix your oil with another organic material, it can go in. But I would advise everyone to check the website of the city or county, wherever you're living, just to double check if you can throw the whole, all of the oil just into your container.
Yeah, that makes sense. So if you were frying up bacon and then you want to go and clean that out instead of pouring it into the typical can and then not knowing where to throw your can away at the end of the year or whatever you do, a lot of people keep that can under their cupboard. You can wipe your pan with your paper.
Yes,
that in there.
Put it in. Yep.
Excellent.
I do see a question about unincorporated county. I can answer that as well. There's different, like Elk Grove, Sacramento City. I think those may be the two cities within the whole Sacramento County. They oversee their city territory, but then the county has unincorporated land that isn't a part of one of the cities or towns. And so there is a map online and that you can plug your address into and find out if you are an unincorporated. So I'll drop that link into the chat.
Thank you. And you could also come to our pop-up event on Saturday and we'll have that information for you as well. But I think North Highlands is unincorporated, maybe Rio Linda is unincorporated. You go down into Del Paso, I think that's part of the city of Sacramento. And the Arden Arcade, I think that's city as well. So we kind of, we have a bunch of different types of I guess, governments in our school district here. So then we have one more question. Just curious, what happens if we put something that is not compostable in the organics bin?
I apologize. I'm not as familiar what that looks like at the residential level. At schools, the hauler is monitoring that. So is the county or the city. For the residential programs, I'm not so positive yet. That's something I can try to look into before Saturday if anyone comes by with that question.
Thank you, Katie. You know, one thing that they're doing, so for example, we have started this at the schools. We had already started before we all took the pause for COVID at about 8 schools, and the kids were doing it. But sometimes people would they call it cross-contaminate or something, and they get like things that need to go to the landfill and the waste. And the hauler was monitoring it, but when the whole garbage can would almost have to go into the landfill if it had anything besides food waste in it. So, you know, being thoughtful about how we're managing that is going to be important. And I think that's why I'm being so thoughtful about how it's going to work in my own home as well. All right, Joanna, could you switch the slides real quick? Oh, can we actually go to my slide real quick, the one that's after the poll questions? Yep. So before we get started on a few poll questions, before we tie this up and really remind you about our pop-up event and the opportunity to come together on Saturday morning, I just was thinking, and I wanted to share some quick stuff, that this whole recycling thing can be pretty inspiring for all of us if you really think about how you just get started and come up with a plan. And then as you're chopping your vegetables, start putting your food waste in your container. And then pretty soon you're going to find out that you're more mindful about your waste. And I want to make sure we use up all of our produce. So instead of cleaning out the produce shelf at the end of the week and going ahead and throwing heads of lettuce away and half eaten, onions and things like that you haven't processed for the week, you're going to be a little bit more mindful about, I'm wasting all of this stuff. We could have had this good nutrition for our dinner. We could have gone ahead and made a salad, or let me go ahead and cut up this cucumber that I could either throw away before I buy new ones, or I could go ahead and cut it up and let's just eat that for our snack right now. So it really has kind of changed some of our nutrition habits, and it can be a great way to bring your family in on this mission of decreasing our food waste and increasing our nutrition by eating up what we have. And I have been very inspired. So I just want you to know I'm more inspired by nature, by the environment, by this circle of life that we have going on, where I can eat this food. And yes, I'm going to have carrot pills and a little end of the celery, but I can go and recycle that and make compost and then renew the soil so that it makes new food for our kids. And it makes me happy to know that we can do more. We can be doing our part just by recycling. So also, if you come to our pop-up event, you're going to get a chance to check out worms and a do-it-yourself composting bin that our teachers that are sponsoring us at Orchard Elementary School, Mr. and Mrs. Ray, they have a worm bin, and they've brought worms, and they're going to show us all kinds of ways that we can do this at home. Even if we have a small patio for a yard, we'll be able to do all kinds of things to be part of this whole system and biosystem. And also, when you're doing this with your kids, get your kids involved. Get them, hey, let's go out. We got to, dump our food scrap into the bin. We've got to go and compost and turn our compost pile. But getting them involved and making it a family event and getting them, it's going to give them more physical activity and decrease that screen time and increase family time. So I'm excited, and I hope that you feel free to reach out to me anytime, lisa.vorse@twinriversusd.org, to share any happy stories of how composting and food waste recycling has impacted your family. And we are in this together, and I'm excited to be like Recycle Twin Rivers with you. So with that, we're going to go ahead and go through those poll questions real quick, and then we'll be ending up our time together, and we will be seeing you on Saturday. Okay, Joanne, I'll let you do that. So take a minute to go through your poll questions.
So for the first one, I'll just read them out loud
Okay,
as well. Is which tip or new information did you find the most interesting? So some of those topics were the fridge and counter organization, talking about where is the waste, and that's something that Breathe